I think those very primitive, primal urges to punish and to threaten and to blackmail people in the present, both financially and emotionally, I think those elements of religion are definitely not needed in the modern day. Alright, so this one is probably going to stir the most controversy on this channel thus far, because I know this can be a very sensitive, touchy, complex issue. Now, I'm not going to be disrespectful, I'm not going to single out any certain religion, I'm not going to focus on the negatives. What I am going to do, like I always do, is speak about the theme from a psychological human condition point of view, because the question needs to be asked, and genuinely asked, and more importantly answered: do we still need religion in this day and age? Now, I know that's a loaded question, a question that will instantly make some of you react. It will spur something in you, an involuntary reaction where you cannot help but go straight to the comments, even now, right now, and attack me. That's the hold that religion has over a lot of people. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I think things like loyalty and belonging to something bigger than yourself, the positive attributes of religion, are important to have, even to this day. I think that is, when it comes to navigating the world and figuring out who it is you are and how to go about this thing we call life, I think having a religious foundation can, and obviously does, provide a stable foundation for people. So I have no qualms, no hesitation in offering that as my preface, as my opening component to the argument. I hope you're starting to sense that I'm not here just to rage bait or get you to react because I want the algorithm working in my favor. No, that's not my style. I genuinely want to create conversation, like I've said throughout all of my videos so far. I really want to get people in the comments talking about these themes, because I think there's not many forums left in the world to do this. So if my channel can be that, can facilitate conversations, debates, like we had even as early ago as the 90s, where we had genuine intellectual debates. We had people of all sorts of conflicting ideologies, both politically and religiously based, coming together in a room to discuss ideas, to openly and without fear offering up points of argument, going back and forth. I think that's healthy, and it has obviously helped shape who it is we are as humans today. I think healthy debate and healthy discussion about polarizing themes is important as a species, as a race. But that was one of many tangents. There'll be a few tangents throughout this video because, well, again, a heavy theme, and I am striving and endeavoring to be sensitive enough to at least get you to the finish line, at least watch the whole video before you rip my head off. So, coming back to the original idea, the original question of this video: do we still need religion in today's day and age? My first point, my first argument would be simply this. For most of human history, up until very recently, religion wasn't optional. It was used as a fundamental pillar of how people interpreted and understood the world. When it came to morality, when it came to mortality, when it came to these very human universal themes, of which the earlier versions, the former iteration of human beings, were still struggling to understand, define, and explain. It was humanity's first attempt, in most cases, to interpret the world in which they lived. It was primitive in its beginnings, but very noble in the way that it strived to articulate and explain to future generations even the world and everything and everyone in it. I think that was an important part of our evolution, intellectually of course as well, to be able to articulate and write about everything that we experience as human beings. No issues there so far. Because when you boil it down, religion in its infancy at least was our first attempt to interpret things like cosmology, astrology, biology, all theologies. It really aimed to decipher the complexities and the struggles of the human condition. It spoke about, and obviously very much still does speak about, death, the afterlife. Morality is a big talking point, as it always has been, when it comes to whether or not religion is, for a better part of the word, good or bad. And this all came as a result of a lack of science, a lack of irrefutable evidence and irrefutable information. It was, I wouldn't use the word fanciful or fairy tale, even though a lot of religion is still deeply rooted in those things. I mean, fairy tale or storytelling, let's say storytelling to be respectful. But it all came before scientific evidence, before human intelligence caught up with the very themes of which religion was analyzing. Speaking of storytelling, religion was in I guess in a way you could say, was humanity's first attempt at storytelling, at passing down information, folklore, traditions through the generations that came after it. Things like values, even the way you should or should not live, was passed down through tribes and groups of people, cities, towns, countries even, and they became scripture, the scriptures that we know today. They became the pillar, the foundational playbook even of every human that came after it was written. But where I want to push back at this moment is that even though that it was a noble intention and religion as a whole, and I'm not speaking about specific or different types of religion here, I'm still speaking it from a general perspective. I think that's the best way to firstly not get flagged on social media, on YouTube, but also to keep it respectful, because again, I'm not singling out any one religion over another. I'm talking more about the instrument of religion and the purpose it plays in the modern day, no matter the iteration, no matter the faith, no matter the version of which you may believe in. My point of this video basically is then that the world simply has changed. Now that's not really saying anything you're not aware of, but those earlier attempts, those primitive events of which was then jotted down in the book, which have become sacred and holy and divine, that version of events, that version of our reality and the way humans interpreted it, no longer exists. So the natural question would be, if that version, of that point in time, of that moment in history in which we started to document facts and the way we should live, if that point in time does not exist anymore, why do the principles and belief systems exist now? I think you can acknowledge, no matter which side of the religious fence you sit on, that that is a fair and reasonable question to ask. Now, of course, many people watching this, if you are watching still, will simply say that it's God's will, or God told me to always believe in Him, or the divine, or whatever version of God you believe in. It's always been God's word, God's will, and that we should never question it. I understand the unyielding and the unquestioning faith of which religion demands from its followers. That's another thing that doesn't really sit well with me, because I think in a world where constant evolution, constant change is present, is undeniable, I think that we do need to question things always. That's why the stagnant nature of religion and the rigidness of it all, where we essentially are refusing to update or alter or edit our religious texts simply because it's always been the way of God or God's will, is, I think, a little bit, I wouldn't say foolish, but it's doing ourselves a disservice as a human species, as a population. Because again, from a very rational and analytical point of view, if you document something 50 years ago, for the most part, 50 years now into the future, whatever you wrote about will be significantly different. I think that's just a basic little example that I'm throwing up here. So we're talking about thousands of years ago, when the collective intelligence, again, without trying to undermine or insult anybody, was not what it is now. I think that's fair to say. So if our level of intelligence, our level of scientific understanding, if our way of interpreting the world has evolved, and quite rapidly throughout the generations up until this point in time right now, in this moment where you watching me speak on video, if that has changed significantly and almost in a way that is unrecognizable to when we first started jotting these ideas down, if that is the case and that we can agree on that, why is it then that these religious texts and belief systems that are anchored in an ancient history, in an ancient past, why are they still relevant now? Now, I'm not saying we should abolish all religion, or that the concept, the instrument of having a collective belief system is inherently a bad thing. Not at all. What I am saying is that we need to understand that times have indeed changed, and with those changes we should be updating and making more relevant what it is we actually do in the present, as opposed to pinning them on something that was written thousands of years ago. Again, very balanced and, I think, objective approach to the argument of, do we still need religion? After all, the many mysteries of which religion strive to solve through storytelling, through the fascinating art of storytelling in some cases, where the vividness and the rich fabric of the story, even though entertaining and I guess at the time believable, was something that people really did consume. I think now, again, looking at it from hindsight and from 2,000 years into the future, I think that science, especially science and objective reality, can explain away a lot of those mysteries. So maybe that's another tick in the box of, no, we don't need religion, or at least in its old, archaic form. But let's talk about the elephant in the room, because the case of morality, the question of morality, do you need to be religious to be a good person, has always been a sticking point for both sides of the argument. Many people argue, and very passionately I might add, that to be religious means that you are a good and honest and moral person, that morality somehow comes from a belief system, comes from a religion. That has been the argument for the religious well, since its inception really, that if you're not religious, and more to the point, if you're not a follower of our religion, then I'm sorry, you're not a good person in our book. But to push back a little bit on that concept, I think it's fair to say that human beings were good before religion was mainstream, before religious belief became a worldwide, universal pillar of what it means to be a good and moral human. I think people were good and moral before man put pen to paper and came up with a set of beliefs and commandments and rules and bylaws in which to follow. Because things like empathy and compassion and tolerance and understanding, they're very real and universal traits that belong to the human condition. And me being, well, I suppose you can call me an atheist, but with curiosity, let's say, but I've always lived by a standard. I've always considered myself a good person, that I believe in karma, that I believe in being good to my neighbor, that I believe in doing the right thing when I have the opportunity, when I'm able to do something for my fellow human, I will do it. Now, I didn't grow up in a religious household, I didn't read any religious texts as an adult, it was just inherently in me. Now, some people might make the argument, oh, but you were conditioned because maybe you had parents that were religious and that just somehow filtered down. No, my parents, they believed in some religion, Catholicism. They were Catholics for the most part, but we never really went to church. There was never any Sunday school. The concept of religion wasn't really present in my household. So the question remains, where did those moralities, those set of beliefs of being a good, honest person and helping your fellow man, where did they come from if I wasn't influenced by religion? And that is the point I'm trying to make, that most people don't avoid hurting others because of some divine punishment, some promise of an eternal burning in the afterlife. No, most people don't break the law, don't hurt other people because simply they know they shouldn't do it. Now, where does that knowing come from? If not from a human and inherent sense of right and wrong. Now, I'm not saying that religion can't elaborate and amplify those very human and innate feelings of being a good person, but I think we can all agree that to be a good person is a rather easy thing to do, because we are born into a world where order, where law, where stability is a very important part of a functioning society, a functioning civilization even. If anything, religion has sometimes made people do and behave in certain ways unbecoming to that sense of morality. We've started wars over it. There's been many cases, even to this day, of violence, of retaliation in the name of certain gods because of their frenzied belief in their religion. Now, I'm not saying anything that is out of turn or insensitive or insulting, because that's just the facts. We have gone to war more times than I like to admit because of religion. Because of someone saying that their God is more important than another God, or that their other God doesn't exist, and that the word of their God told them to do this and has justified the bloodshed of others because, well, it's just part of what they believe. I think that's a very dangerous and slippery slope in which to adopt, especially when the conversation is revolving around the sense of morality, of being a good person. Because people that are frenzied believers of a religion, they can often convince themselves that what they are doing in the name of their God, in the name of their religion, is justified because, well, it is the word of some 2,000-year-old merchant, a collection of people who performed a sense of Chinese whispers and passed on these little messages and these little tidbits along the way, and have now constituted a book in which many people in the modern day live by. But I will grant religion this: they may have codified morality, they have organized moral ideas, preserved moral ideas that have carried through generations of followers. I will grant them that. In fact, Many religions have spread moral ideas and moral guidelines and certain ways of living for generations, hundreds of years, thousands of years even. But the question remains, did they actually invent them? In my opinion, I don't think they did. And the best way to justify that type of answer is this hypothetical. If every religion on earth right now disappeared tomorrow, would the majority of humans automatically, by default, revert to some sort of rabid, animalistic tendency where we don't know right from wrong anymore? Would that be the reality of which eventuates? Would we stop loving? Would we stop caring? Would we stop sacrificing and doing the things that, again, make us good people? Would all of that go away because a few books no longer exist? And of course, I don't mean to condense religion down to a book. I understand it's a belief system, it's a way of life, and many people hold it in the highest regard. Again, I'm not trying to be insensitive or attack anybody's faith. That's not my intention in this video. I have said that a few times now. That's not me being defensive, I'm just being honest and upfront with my intentions. I think it's important because, again, this theme and this topic and this question can be perceived as a hostile hypothetical, as a question that will get under the skin of a lot of people. But again, I think you can tell if you're still watching this video, if you're still hearing me speak, I think you can ascertain and sense by now that I'm not a malicious person, that I'm not trying to rig the algorithm or piss people off for the sake of it. It's not who I am. Because I will grant religion this as well, that during times of duress, during times of fear and uncertainty, religion has indeed provided a safeguard, a sense of stability for millions and millions of people, if not billions. In whichever form that you believe in your religion, whatever name that is attached to your book, I think that if it does help you decipher and interpret and really live in a way that perhaps has helped you be a better person, then I can't really take that away from you. And again, I'm not meaning to do that. I think religion as a whole was inherently designed to be a good thing for humanity. I think it was. The problem for me, at least through the eyes of my perception, is that it has been hijacked over the generations, over the years, by human greed, by a strange sort of thirst to control people. It has become a mechanism for control, really. It has divided millions and billions of people throughout our history. It has caused immense bloodshed. Even when it comes to talking in a civil way, a lot of people can't sit still. They squirm in their chair if anybody dares speak ill of their religion. That in itself should highlight the fact that no matter what it claims, many religions are not tolerant of other religions, of other ideas, of other ideologies, because they cannot even for a moment listen and entertain the contrarian belief that their religion may not be what it is they think it is. The fact that we can rarely speak about it, not even criticize, just speak and bring these points to the surface, the fact that we cannot do that in a safe and well-mannered and civil way, again highlights the bastardization of many religions. Because again, I think it was inherently designed to be good, to be a set of guidelines and principles for people to come together and believe in something bigger than themselves. I can get behind that idea. I like that idea. I think that that is needed still in today's day and age. What is not needed, however, is another instrument of control, a warmongering belief system that is not tolerant at all to anybody else's belief system, and especially when it comes to man-made and human-created institutions getting tax breaks, not paying tax at all, getting pardoned when they have committed atrocious crimes, when people are punished, as in many religions were guilty of up until this point, in torturing and killing people in the name of their faith because they believed whatever they believed justified it. I think those very primitive, primal urges to punish and to threaten and to blackmail people in the present, both financially and emotionally, I think those elements of religion are definitely not needed in the modern day. Now, does that make me a bigot or discriminatory? Does that make me a piece of shit? I don't think it does. I think it just makes me someone who wants to talk about it, because I think that the more we go into our future without questioning things, especially the instrument of religion and the way it has been, again, hijacked and used to essentially hurt people, to manipulate them, to extract financial gain, to essentially hold over them a form of blackmail, to behave in a certain way, to follow a set of rules that benefit only a few in the present. They are threatened with an eternal hellfire, an afterlife that is unimaginable, all the while not being able to prove a single point of it. I think that type of an imaginary punishment, an imaginary blackmail, is very harmful to people in the real modern day and age, where that if they just took the good parts of many religions, the community, the coming together, the believing something bigger than yourself, breaking bread together, being tolerant of each other, maybe believing in a celestial being, maybe believing in an afterlife, positioning yourself in a way that you are a good person now in the present while you're living, so maybe you do reap the rewards if there is an afterlife. I think those principles, without the violence, without the threat, without the hostile blackmail and psychological manipulation, and of course the warmongering, I think if we can somehow shake many religions of those dark and cancerous spots, I think that religion still has a place in the modern day and age. I really do. Like I said, I'm not the greatest fan of modern day religions, but I can see the upside in them. And I want to believe in community again. I want to believe in the human spirit coming together, that we can talk about these things in an intellectual arena, in a very civil, controlled and sensible arena, where we can discuss ideas, where we can go back and forth without the threat of violence, without the threat of being killed in the street because you said something about a God that is still yet to be proven exists. Again, very balanced and very stable approach, I think, to the conversation. I haven't named any religions, I haven't inferred to any specific religions. I just think as a whole, human beings are conniving and cunning, and left unchecked will use things like religion, like institutions, for their advantage. I think it's not unreasonable to say that many people behind these religions, people in higher positions of power behind their chosen faith, I think understand that. They understand the basic mechanisms of human psychology, a collective human psychology, and how to indeed control that and garner that for their own benefit and gain. I think that is very evident through financial gains that they have, the almost pedestal-like, guru-like platforms of which they present, the fact that governments don't tax them, the fact that they own property, the fact that they had and still believe in tiers of humans, hierarchies. I think all of these things have been, again, attached to something that was otherwise intended to be good. That is my overall message here for this video. Not that we should just strip the world of religion tomorrow, not that, believing in something that maybe science can't explain is a bad thing necessarily, but I think when conscious human beings use those very real and, thought-provoking ideas to their advantage, I think when that happens, I think we have problems. So I'll leave you with this message. Again, the hypothetical. If all religions disappeared tomorrow, would we immediately lose our sense of morality? Would we all become terrible, bloodlusting people where we just attacked each other in the street because the concept of a god, the one of many gods that we all sort of are aware of now, let's say there was no more gods, there was no more books on how to live. Let's say all of that went away tomorrow. What would be left of the human race? That is the question you must ask yourself in the context of the question that I have posed at the start of this video. Because if you genuinely think that all human beings would lose their mind in an instant, if the sense of morality would fly out the door because there's not a set of books that tell us how we should live, then I suppose that's the answer you'll come up with when I'm proposing this hypothetical. But if you genuinely think that no, I think human beings would still be mostly the same, that maybe there'd be a little bit less fighting, there'd be a little bit less conflict, but in the case of morality, I think that if you were saying to yourself, I think that humans would still maintain their sense of morality, that the inherent feeling of knowing what's right and what's wrong would still be in place, I would tend to agree with you. That's my position. And I think that bottom line, I think we just need to get along. And if religion is posing as a real tool of division, as it has been in the last, I don't know when you're watching this video, let's just say the last 20 years. I mean, there's always been war and conflict as a result of religion and opposing beliefs, but especially in the modern day and age where our weaponry is quite frightening now, where we can just push a button and flatline a whole community. I think when you are using religion and a conflicting set of beliefs to justify that push of the button, I think that's when we really need to start talking like I am in this video, because it is hurting us as a population. It is really dividing us, and it is ultimately killing us. I think Again, I know I said bottom line and final message, but take away this. If religion is the core of a lot of conflict and a lot of anguish, if you cannot tolerate or even listen to someone else's set of beliefs or ideas because of your religion, deeming it evil, unacceptable, whichever word you want to use, if your religion does not allow for an arena of ideas, an arena of free-flowing civil conversation, then I really do feel sorry for people that can never entertain the possibility of us coming together as a race again, because their religion, their set of beliefs, their book will never allow it. Now, if you break it down and condense it like that, I think it's safe to say that the answer to the overall question at the start of this video is then no. If religion is only that form, if it's only polarizing, if it's only a violent resistance to other religions and other sets of beliefs and other people who perhaps don't share the same ideologies, if that is your knee-jerk reaction, or that your ideological stance that you can never entertain and never even for a moment listen to someone else's belief or perspective or view of the world, I think if that is your reality, then I think it's safe to say that religion is not a positive. It's not helpful. How can it be helpful? We're all sharing this earth together, contrary to the belief of many people, and especially the media and the governments who want to keep us divided. But human civilization, human nature, the human condition depends on all of us getting along. Otherwise, we've lost all hope. So if religion is the tool of division, if it is driving us further and further away from each other, if it is creating violence in the streets and violence in faraway countries where there's bombs falling in the name of religion, in the name of certain gods, or there's an inherent sense of belonging that, no, this is my land because my God said, no, this is my land because my God said, if there's things like that happening in today's day and age as a result of a set of beliefs that was, again, man-made, then I think it's safe to say that that form of religion needs to be looked at, because it's not helping anybody. How can it? How can war, bloodshed, intolerance, violence, an incapacity to understand and want to understand our fellow human, how can any of those things be good? How can we sit there objectively and say that, no, you're wrong because my religion tells me that I'm right? If you cannot even tolerate, if you can't even stomach the possibility or the question or the questions of which I'm posing, then I think the answer is quite evident, quite clear. So I know this one might create a lot of controversy. It might even lose me followers, but subscribers. But I think it's timely to ask these questions, timely to look at the full picture. And I could have obviously made this video another hour or two because it's a very complex and sensitive issue. I obviously skimmed over the main points. I could probably make more videos about this, but depending on how this is received, I am yet to decide whether or not I'll make more about this, but let's see. So as always, leave me your thoughts. I'm sure there's going to be many for this one in the comment section. And if you agree, even if you don't agree, but you like the idea of someone making you a little bit uncomfortable, at least intellectually, at least from a creative and ideas point of view, that, you know what, maybe someone like this guy can be someone that I can listen to, even if I don't agree, because it generates something, it stimulates something in me that I think all of us need right now. We need to be able to talk, we need to be able to debate, we need to be able to come together and discuss ideas and really work on resolution, on things that will help us grow and live together, as opposed to the opposite of dividing and hurting us. So that's it for me. Let's see if I still have a channel after this one, but if you're still here, thanks for listening, thanks for tolerating, and again, let me know what you think in the comments.